Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first Let's Make It Work marriage seminar of 2021. We did one, I think, last year because of the pandemic, but we really wanted to get one in the beginning of the year. 2020 was a different year for all of us, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
And it affected marriages in all kinds of ways. You know, some people, because they have more time at home, it drew people closer together. Because some people had more time at home, it was harder.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about all that tonight. And we have a small studio audience here. I'm really excited about this diverse group of people from different experiences. And they may have a question or something at some point to share. You all may have a question at some point. If you do have questions, I want you to email your questions. Those of you who are watching online, email your questions to Serge Marie Pierce. Her email address is smpierce, Pierce, at seedsofgreatness.org. And at the end, we'll address questions. So I'm excited. The other special thing we have today is we have a therapist, a counselor with us, Mrs. Sheila Staley, and she's going to be sharing as well. First, you'll hear from us, and then she'll come on in a little while. But we just want to cover a lot of territory tonight, and we want us all to leave here a little better. All right? I know when the pandemic first started, and we were basically in lockdown and couldn't go anywhere. I think my husband tried to go to the store every day. He just could not stay in the house. He needed to get out because he's an extrovert. So I think it was a little harder on the extroverts. I'm an introvert, and I really don't mind being in the house. But guess what? I'm tired of it now. I'm ready to be out. I'm ready to see your faces. See your faces. I'm tired of Zoom all the time. But we're going to get through it. It's going to be over soon, and I'm looking forward to that. You looking forward to that, honey?
I am. I'm looking forward to, and I do like being out.
I know you do.
And, sometimes you need to get out.
Mm-hmm.
You need a break. Everybody needs a break. I think that every relationship should be able to have space within it. Me and you work together, so we're with each other when we're in the office 24/7.
We're not in office 24/7.
I mean, I'm talking about, yeah, that's true. But we're around each other pretty much 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not too much time between us. But sometimes I need a break. Sometimes you need a break. I'll go down to the river, park my car. It doesn't mean I don't love my wife. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy being with her. But sometimes I need to clear my head. Sometimes I need some space.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need space. And that's not a bad thing. And I think that even with the space, you still stay accountable.
Right.
Because I can go down to the park and I'll let you know, hey, that's where I'm at, So I think that's important. And sometimes I think that we feel like we have to be Siamese twins. They're stuck together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that every couple needs that space between themselves. And I think it's healthy.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I'm good, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm good too.
Okay.
I'm good
okay.
too.
Yeah.
The pandemic has, I think it's affected all of us. It really has. And sometimes, like, I find, like, I might get a little antsy and, get a little frustrated because I can't do what I like to do all the time. And I might not realize that I'm acting a certain way, that I'm frustrated, And sometimes I check myself. It's like,
Yeah, I check you.
Yeah, and he'll check me too.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't realize how we're coming across.
Yeah.
And it could be because of all the restrictions, all the things that we're going through, and it's just different.
Yeah.
Nobody in this world, absolutely nobody in this world has been through what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to give everybody grace, space, and room to grow.
Yeah.
Because none of us have navigated these waters before. I found myself getting real frustrated over the whole vaccination thing. I was like, you know what? Nobody's ever did this before. There's no model. There's no model for this. So we can't be getting mad at, they should know how to do this. They never did it before. None of us have ever done this before. Try to vaccinate 300 million people. Mm-hmm. Quick. Who's done that? Nobody's done it. So we have to just give each other grace.
Well, I think that what has happened with the pandemic, it's global. And then on top of that, the church is being closed,
Yes.
not being able to come together and fellowship. And the fellowship that we would have in church, it actually helps our relationships,
It does.
because that relationship with God is being strengthened. And when this relationship is strengthened, then this relationship
Yeah,
is strengthened. And when you take that away, you know, now you have to take the initiative to make sure this relationship is good with God.
Yeah.
And your fellowship with him has to be good, because a lot of times the thing that impacts this type of relationship is when this relationship isn't good. And we have to be very, very, very purposeful when it comes down to that, making sure that you have your God time, you know, your time of fellowshipping with the Lord. Because when I spend time with him, it helps to check my attitude when I'm with you. And if I don't spend time with him, it definitely impacts my attitude when I'm around you. And so with that being taken away from our fellowship throughout the week, with the churches being closed, especially in the Northeast, it has an impact on relationships. And I believe personally that it's an attack by the enemy
It is.
to try to destroy marriages. And I think that I don't believe that there's a marriage that's not under some level of stress, whether it's work related, family related, finance related, or even physical health related.
Yeah.
Because there's so many attacks on so many different levels. And I think that sometimes coming together in times like these, it helps to kind of put things in perspective, because you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
And other people are facing challenges too,
Yeah.
you know?
You know, I think about the fact that we haven't been able to gather as a church. Pastor and I went to a conference in Florida last week, and that was the first time in almost a year that we had been in a live service with people, lots of people.
Yeah.
And that, it really felt good, you know, and we're all missing that here at Seeds,
Yeah.
you know, and there's something that we get, especially at this church.
Yeah.
It's something that we get when we come together. You get that smile. Like Chris, he's smiling at me right now.
Yeah.
You know, you get that smile, you get
Yeah.
that warm embrace. People don't even know you're going through something, and they just give you that smile, and they just say how glad they are to see you. And we're not getting that, you know, so that affects us, and we're coming back. We're coming
You know,
back.
the crazy thing about it is one of the things we've always taught in church is be transparent, be open,
Yeah.
be honest and authentic. And one of the things you did in one of your girlfriend's conferences, you talked about taking off the mask, because the mask has a way of hiding things.
Right.
Isn't it ironic that we have to wear a mask now and cover up?
Wow.
And now you can't see the smile unless people smile with their eyes.
Yeah. Smile.
You know, but the thing is, the very thing that the church has preached that we shouldn't do, the pandemic has forced us to do,
Put on a mask.
to put on a mask.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I made that good point,
That's,
didn't I?
you did.
Yeah,
You
I'm
did
sorry.
good.
Okay.
You did good.
Every now and then.
So I'm going to just take a minute, and if anybody here in our studio audience wants to share, you know, something that you learned from the pandemic, at this point, I'm going to give you.
Before you go to that, I want every couple to look at their spouse. You can take your mask off and look at their spouse, all right? And I want you to say this to them. Now, I'm going to watch. Lisa, I want you to watch this side, and I'm going to watch this side. And we'll do it later, baby, but we're good. I want you to watch that side, and I want you to watch this side. If their mouth is not moving, I'm going to shoot them with a rubber band from here, okay? I want you to look at your spouse, grab them by both of their hands, and look them in the round of their eyes like you've seen them for the very first time. All right? And say, I thank God for you. And you got to talk a little louder. You can say it kind of sexy if you want. Go ahead and say it, though. Say, I thank God for you. I want you to know I love you, I care about you, and I want you in my life. I appreciate you. I value you. This year will be a great year for us. I stand with you. I support you. I am always here for you. With God on our side, there is no challenge we cannot overcome. You got to look at him real sexy when you say this. My desire is to please you. Come on, look him in the eyes. Hey, you might get amen on that one. My desire is to please you. My desire is to serve you. I want you happy. I will pray for you. I will love you. Thank you for being here with me tonight. Now you can give them a kiss. You didn't say it, but you can give me a kiss.
Amen. Hopefully those of you who are watching were doing the same thing. Somebody said to me today, sent me a text and said, looking forward to the seminar tonight. It's a good time to snuggle and pour into our marriages, you know, so it really is a good time. And if some of you, it may have been a struggle to say those things, but I believe that by the time the night's over, you're making some progress, making some inroads, okay? So is there anybody, and there's no pressure, because if it's not, we can move on. Anybody in our studio audience who'd like to share, you know, something that you got out of the pandemic times, or just something you learned? Anybody? No pressure. So, Serge will sanitize the mic after every use. That is Sugar Small. She's not going to be on the camera, but you'll hear her voice. She and Jason have been married for 14 years. It'll be 14 years in July.
Yeah, so I've appreciated our time with each other, but I wanted to make sure we still set time aside for one another. So we couldn't be as spontaneous as we would have liked, but we wanted to make sure we were still intentional. So I sent him a calendar invite for date nights for every other Thursday, and we may not be able to go anywhere, but we, you know, went down in the basement and watched a movie, or stayed up and played dominoes, or just little things, and had fun with each other, but we made sure we set that time aside to be with each other.
How long did you stay up playing dominoes one night?
So we're really competitive, so it was about 12:30 in the morning that we ended our game, because Jason doesn't like to lose, and I was winning, so.
Awesome. Anybody else? Stephanie Weston. Stephanie and Derek have been married for 21 years, coming up 22 in October. She's clapping.
So for us, I think I've had to deal with like family, parents being sick. And so it's been challenging not to be able to like see my father. And Derek has been really supportive in just kind of navigating that, because it's different. I mean, he's been in nursing care since June. And so I've only seen him one time last year. So that's been like a little bit of a challenge. And then being home with adult children. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. That is a challenge, but like Sugar said, we do things a little different. So we watch a lot of movies, and Derek, because he's retired and I still work, feels like I should be able to watch all the binge watching movies with him until 4 o'clock in the morning. So usually I'm pretty dog tired, at least 3 nights out of the week, not just from the movie watching, but that's one of the reasons. But it's been great. I mean, this has been a learning time, and I wouldn't trade the time. You know, we've been blessed with, you know, a job during the pandemic, and just God has been really faithful to us. But dealing with sick parents during the pandemic has definitely challenged me in a way that I wouldn't have expected.
And you had a job loss, like you lost your job. You got laid off during that time too. But God came through, and now you're employed and doing great, right? Awesome.
You know, I think sometimes in situations like this, we need to look at our relationship and do a reset, you know, because sometimes what I think that, and I was sharing this today in healing school, that when we're faced with a crisis, we can see it one of two ways. We can see it as an obstacle, or we can see it as an opportunity. I was thinking about this today when I was teaching. I was talking about David when he went to go face Goliath. David saw the exact same thing the armies of Israel saw. They both saw the same thing, but they had two different perspectives. The armies of Israel saw Goliath, and they thought, we can't do nothing with this big man. They saw an obstacle. David saw an opportunity. During the midst of this pandemic, it's all about how you see it. You can look at this as an obstacle, or you can look at this as an opportunity. You can look at it as an opportunity to reset your relationship, because most of the time before this pandemic hit, you know what everybody was saying? I'm too busy.
So busy. Yeah.
I'm too busy. I don't have time to go on a date. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to eat dinner. I don't have time to do this. Now we have the time. And this is the time to look at it not as an obstacle, but to look at it as an opportunity to reset.
Yeah, that's good.
You know?
That's good. Okay, we have Tanera Willis. You guys been married 14 years? 15 years. 15 years. Che and Tanera Willis.
Hello. Yeah, this is what I've been stuck on with. So we joke all the time and say Che's personality is more like Sister Lisa and I'm more like Pastor. Che doesn't have to be around another human being for the rest of his life. And I'm going like, all right, enough's enough. Let the whole family in, the whole neighborhood in. So that's been one of our obstacles and challenges and also opportunities, I would say, because I would encourage everybody to keep the united front throughout it. Because there's been times where he's had to, I guess, be more of the tough one and say, we can't be around these people, we can't go nowhere, we can't celebrate this party, birthday, different things like that. That's been emotional extremely for me. Like, I felt like in the summer, we have all of our birthdays in the summer, we have tons of parties, events, vacationing. I literally felt depressed in the summer. Like, I can't do this, and then having to tell certain people they can't come over. And for him, they just can't come over, and if they don't understand, they're just gonna have to deal with it. That's their problem. And for me, it's how do you tell them no, and who do you tell no? So I don't think it's caused division with us, because I acknowledge that it's important, and he's making the right decision, and I want to be more emotional about it. But it's a great opportunity to continue to keep that united front with your family and your friends, because it's for the betterment of our health. But on a positive note, well, that was positive too, but we have had more. We instituted family time again where we had stopped. We've been very consistent with family nights, and another Seeds family had told us about that. And I'm like, oh, we should go back to doing that. So we've been very consistent with that. And we're completing projects, accomplishing goals. So it's had a lot of positive things outside of not being able to party. But
Or vacation like you would like.
yeah, our 15th anniversary, we were supposed to do a whole 5-star, first class, and they just,
It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
But my baby is 5-star in first class. So
Right. Ching, ching.
don't try to steal that, James. No, but I think for me it was a lot of self-reflection because I'm in sales, so I like things now. I like to try to close accounts and things like that, and I couldn't do it. And then my son is doing virtual learning, so then I got to help him with school, and then I'm not closing accounts, and I'm trying to get people on the phone, and I can't get them on the phone, and it's just frustrating, But it helped me realize that I don't have to do it by myself, because God, if I'm dependent on God, he's going to supply all my needs as far as my accounts and stuff like that. So something happened today where I'm trying to work, I'm trying to, call people, I can't get people on the phone, and then I got to help my son for like 3 hours with stuff that he should have been already doing that I just realized it wasn't done. But I know that God is going to continue to bring accounts in that I don't necessarily have to work for, and I'm having the best year of my career right now, and without having to,
Awesome.
do all those things. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's really great. And so, Che, part of you is missing. Part of you is missing. Like,
Oh, I'm like, what?
where's the rest of you? How much weight have you lost?
I'm going to say about maybe 30 to 40 pounds.
Wow, that's
like that, yeah.
excellent. What did you do?
Keto diet, and then I started working out.
Awesome.
Yeah, ride my bike, and
Yeah.
I ride with bikes with Milton and Derek over there.
I rode bikes too, and I didn't lose
Yeah.
30 pounds.
But that's another thing. Like it really helped me to be. I'm already a disciplined type person.
What are you trying to say?
No, don't do that. But it just helped me to be more disciplined, because every day I'm on the scale, just making sure, okay,
Wow.
if I gain a couple pounds here, I know what I ate yesterday, so I know to kind of scale it back a little bit. But it's just helping me be
Great
just
job.
on it. Yeah.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Looking good. We got a couple more over here. I just got to give a shout out right now to our newlyweds, to Les and Laretha. Been married how many months? 3, 4 months? 2.5? 2.5 months. And she is smiling less. Keep that smile on my girl's face. That's awesome. So we have Mrs. Tawanda Cuffey, married to Andrew for 6 years.
We're going on 6 years.
Almost 6 years.
Ooh.
Awesome. Go ahead, T.
So Drew was the one who wanted to speak, but the editor in me was like, well, what are you trying to talk about? And then he explained the story. So I was like, okay, well, let me set the stage for it. So we were pregnant when the pandemic hit. I was 3 or 4 months pregnant. And we had made the decision we needed to sell our house so we could move into a larger home for our family, because we were going to be a family of 4 now. We sold our house very quickly. That was easy, and we, got above asking, so that was a blessing. But the process to get a new home in this season has been extremely difficult. For example, we might bid $25,000 over the asking price of a home, but there's people who are outbidding you. And we're struggling with, that doesn't seem appropriate to offer that much. So anyway, we moved in with my mom and my stepdad. Drew's absolutely comfortable there. He's comfortable anywhere. So is my children. But it was difficult for me because I've been on my own since I was 17 and I went to college. I prided myself a lot in being very independent, right? And then we got in a really bad car accident on top of that. And our car was totaled. We had to get a new car. But at some point, postpartum hit me really, really, really bad. Depression, anxiety, and insomnia. And I was dealing with the anxiety. But the depression, and then you can't sleep more than an hour or two a night, became very, very mentally exhausting. And I was crashing, and it took a toll on everything. And my husband had to step up in a completely different way because I loved being a superwoman. And I'm learning now that that's not always appropriate. You have to take care of yourself. But this is 38 years of learning that I'm unlearning. And so what he wanted to share was there was a night when the kids, he gets off a little bit later than me, but the kids needed to do the bedtime routine. We got a 7-month-old bath time, almost 4-year-old bedtime. It's a lot. With 2 now, we're learning. And because I have insomnia, I'm overcoming insomnia. I have certain medications. I have a process to go to bed, right? I need to take melatonin and my tea or whatever, and tone down the lights. And he puts on lavender and all like that. Read my scriptures that I'm following, certain reading plans. And one night, Drew, who works full time but also does investments in things separately, he has an evening call he likes to get on. But at that point, he hadn't communicated to me, right? Because he likes to put his needs to the back burner, specifically when I'm in need, which is what all husbands do, and I'm grateful for that. But I was like, I need you to do X, Y, and Z with Maya to help me get the kids ready. And he was like, no. And I was like, what? He was like, no. And the thing is, my daughter needs to cuddle to go to bed. He was like, she can put herself to bed. I'm like, but you were the one who said she could stay up late, and you gave her snacks. So now she's hyped, don't want to go to bed, needs someone to help her go to bed. I got the baby, you on this computer, and you told me no? You don't say no. So, I bucked a little bit, and he obliged. But later, I was like, what was that about? First, he came to apologize, but he explained, I have a call I like to get on at 9 every night. I have not been able to do it. The investment thing, for him, it's important to have supplemental income to provide essentially for us. And I can't do that because at this point in time, I'm always doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, you should have told me that because I could have helped plan differently. We need to make sure that the children are in bed by this time so that you can make this call at 9 every night. I need that space anyway to begin to prepare for sleep, but we hadn't communicated about that and communicated our needs. And I think what this pandemic has taught us more than anything is that even though it's so difficult, and for us, we've been going through the wildest thing that we never would have imagined in terms of moving back home with parents, 2 kids, the baby at home, not being able to get out, to your point, socialize. That's me. He's an introvert. It's still important to share how you feel and what you need, right? And not to put that on the back burner for fear of wanting to disappoint the other person, you know, or for fear for wanting to ruffle feathers. Because if we don't, then we can't make it to the other side and we can't be fulfilled, you know? And so in that moment, I was like, tell me that. Because now I'm telling you what I need more than anything else in the world at this point. Via therapy, I'd put it all out there now. You know what I'm saying? I'm an open book. But just because I'm going through this season and I know God is going to sustain me through this, doesn't mean your needs are still not important. Even through this, you're supporting me, but I still can support you. And so share that. And so now we've been able to get that process together where it's like, all right, get these kids to bed so you can have your time because it's important, right? And I can have mine and we can work together. So it's taught us to communicate about things we're vulnerable about, or things we don't necessarily like to share because we don't want to overburden our partners. But it's still important because his needs are important to me and vice versa.
And sometimes it's good to apologize. So what I did afterwards, I realized like I wasn't speaking godly. I wasn't, my approach wasn't appropriate for how I approached her. So I apologized, said, I'm sorry, I didn't, understand. I didn't realize that I was approaching you that way. So my apology. In the future, I'm gonna correct myself. And so we moved on and, from that point.
That's grown man stuff there, bro. No, I'm serious. That's grown man stuff.
Because some men
there.
don't apologize.
Because some men don't apologize.
Yeah.
Some men are wrong. They know they're wrong. Their pride won't allow them to. That's grown man stuff there, brother.
And when he does that, it makes me feel vulnerable enough to, you know what I mean? Like when you soften your heart in communication, then I can soften a bit and we can talk because we can both be hard and we're, headstrong sometimes. But and that's what I feel like we've done more. We've softened our approach and been more vulnerable and just honest and loving in how we communicate with each other about things.
Yeah, that's really good because think about it. Communication is the bridge that connects you. If the communication is broken off, then the bridge is falling apart and you can't connect. And that's so important, man. And I appreciate you being the man and the leader that she can follow now because you were willing to turn around and says, you know what? I wasn't godly in that. I didn't say that the right way. And what happened to her was she said, I can follow that. And a lot of times as men, we want our women to follow us because we said so. No, that's not the reason why she follows you because you said so. She follows you because you should be a godly example for her that she can follow and she can teach the children, watch how daddy does it, because that's the way a leader, that's the example a leader gives. And so I think that is not something I want to skirt over because a lot of times we don't apologize in relationships. And I've said this from day one, but it holds to be true. A relationship doesn't go bad by itself. It goes bad by neglect. And neglect is things that you know you should do that you don't do. So you can't neglect the things that you should do and expect to have a healthy marriage. Right. If my wife's love language is quality time and acts of service, did I get that right? If listen, I ain't trying to mess this up, but listen, if I know what her love languages are and I don't give that to her, that's manipulation. Manipulation is witchcraft. That's witchcraft. And a lot of times couples are operating in witchcraft in their marriage and in their relationships because they know what they should give their spouse, but as a form of retaliation, we hold back from them what we should be giving them. And you can't grow a healthy relationship with that. I appreciate that, Drew. Thank you. I think all the fellas need to give him a hand on that one. That's great, man.
That's really good. I really like the fact that Drew spoke up and said why he said no. A lot of times we're mad about something and we don't say it. We just walk around angry.
Yeah.
And that's passive aggressive.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
I'm learning more about that behavior. And a lot of times women do that.
It's very subtle.
But it's really bad.
It's very subtle.
It's really bad. Instead of communicating what's wrong or what you need, you just walk around angry and mad. It's controlling. Yeah.
And then
it's
when
really
we ask,
bad.
what's wrong? Nothing.
But you know something's wrong.
But now you
so it's passive
lying.
aggressive.
Yeah.
You get it? You're not really doing anything, but it is doing something really bad. That's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. I think we have one more.
Yeah.
This is Jeremiah Guy, married to Christian Guy for 5 years. 5 years.
The guys. A Christian guy. Okay.
The guys.
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate this opportunity. I usually don't do this. I'm the introverted one. But I just had to share. The pandemic has been an interesting time for Christian and I thank God for her every day, because I lost my job in September. I worked at my job for 15 years, which is crazy because I consider myself still young. But when I lost my job, a lot of different emotions, but Christian really was a pillar of faith, and it was really amazing to see. You know, sometimes when things like that happen, I know some women could kind of be like, you know, what you gonna do? You know, they kind of looking at you like, what you gonna do? But Christian, you know, she really, you know, we prayed and we talked about it, and she really encouraged me to pursue my purpose. And that's something that I wouldn't have done without her really encouraging me to do that, because I'm the type of person that's just like, you know, whatever I need to do to make sure my family's good, I'm gonna make sure we're good. But she was like, no, this is the time. God is really kind of pushing you and nudging you, something that I kind of been ignoring for a while. So when she did that, you know, it really gave me the courage to really step out on faith. And since I've done that, we haven't skipped a beat in our home. And God has done exceedingly abundantly above all, you know, we could ever ask or think. So we haven't skipped a beat. So I just want to say thank you for being the rock. I appreciate it.
So Jeremiah, part of your purpose is personal training,
Yes.
fitness.
So
What's
we
the
have
name?
virtual training that's available. You can go to the website. It's www.jeremiah2911fitness.com. All right?
Jeremiah
finish.
29:11. Jeremiah 29.
Jeremiah2911fitness.com. JEREMIH 2911FITNESS.com. Thank you.
Praise God. Praise
I
God.
think that's it.
Praise God.
Thank you.
But Jeremiah mentioned something really, really special. He said that some women be looking at you like, what you gonna do now, you know, and kind of being hard on it. But she was an encourager. And one of the things that I've only shared this a few times, but about a year or two before we started Seeds of Greatness, I heard the Holy Spirit say to me these words: empower Jerome. Ladies, our words have power. Our words have power. They have more power over our husbands than we know. We need to be their biggest cheerleader, because if not, somebody else going to cheer for them. No matter how, whatever you don't like about him, no matter how he is, somebody else will cheer him. When Jerome walks off of that stage every Sunday, even if I think he messed up a few times, I say, great job, honey. That was awesome. I'm the first one he hears from. I'm the first one he hears from. Our husbands need that, ladies. Our husband, even if their love language isn't words of affirmation, make sure that you affirm them. Make sure you're the one who affirms them. Great job, Christian. Great job. We got one more. Nicole Homer, who's married to Vaughn Homer for, help me out,
It'll be 13.
13, I was going to say
It'll be
14.
13.
13 years. Awesome. They met in my backyard,
Yes,
our
we did.
backyard. You know how pastors say, turn to your neighbor or hold hands with your neighbor? They've been holding hands ever since.
That's true. It's very
Yeah.
true. Well, Pastor said, be honest with God, be transparent with him, and tell him what you actually want. And I wasn't a girl who like dreamed about getting married and having like a family and all the babies and stuff. I actually didn't want any kids when I was growing up, and so, but that night for some reason, I was like, you know what? I guess I would like to be married in the next like 2 years. And then here this guy is. And his hand just felt so great, so I had to keep him. So, but I think during the pandemic, so Vaughn and I have a lot in common. He should have actually been like a military general, because he's very rigid with his approach. He's very systematic. He likes to be in a routine, and I love that as well. Except like I'm really in the military, and so it's like those things we had in common. And so when it came to raising our family,
we function as so many people have told us, we manage our family like a business, right? We have a schedule. We have binge nights with the kids where we just sit and eat as much candy and popcorn. Like we have different bowls of different types of popcorn. We have cinnamon sugar. We have Old Bay. We have all this stuff. Then we have gummy sections. We have like all this stuff, and we binge with the kids all night. We'll watch movies, any movie, right? And then we used to have game night Wednesdays, where we would choose a game. And so we have all these things that we always pour into our families. They have nighttime, like everyone sleep by 8:30. Like we're really serious about that, like period. The schedule starts, we have dinner, like, and we're just completely in line with it. Education, nope, you come home, you have your snack, you do your homework. We're having dinner at this point. And so, but what I found is that with our systems, we're pouring into our kids, and our kids are really close, you know, and they do a great job of taking care of each other, and that's what we wanted them to have. But like Vaughn and I were not friends, right? Like we were business partners, but in a marriage. And we did it great. Like we would have our movie nights and our date nights and stuff, and we would go out and we would sit and talk about the kids, or just talk about our friends and like their, you know, situations or different memories that we would have. And so during the pandemic, I realized that, oh wow, you know, I don't really like know how to actually like talk to Vaughn in a way where he feels comfortable like talking to me as a friend. And I was like, I realized I didn't know how to kind of do that in a way that he felt comfortable. And it was hard during the pandemic for us, not like for our family and everything like that. It was difficult, the virtual learning and, you know, working from home, it was difficult, but we do so well adapting and adjusting to life with each other that adjusting wasn't a problem. And the kids, we've taught them, look, change happens, what do we need to do to adjust? Let's assess the situation, let's figure out what variables, this is how we train our kids. So adjusting was just like, okay, this is life, right? What are we gonna do to make it happen? But then we were sitting down and we were like, look, I don't really wanna watch another old school Bill Cosby movie. Like I'm just not into it. You know, Uptown Saturday Night, like how many times, right? I'm like, I wanna watch, you know, a Maid of Honor or, you know, some rom-com. And he's like, oh my God, then he would fall asleep. And I'm like, see, this is why we're not friends. Because unless we're watching like a Marvel, like we're both into, I used to read all Marvel comic books when I was a kid. Like that's what I did as a little girl. Like I read Marvel comic books and I climbed trees and built systems, right? And so he's like, oh, let's do all that. And I'm like, my mom didn't let me watch a lot of things that his mom let him watch. And he's like, you're not culturally black, right? Like you don't, why haven't you seen this movie? And I'm like, my mom said it was inappropriate. She didn't let me watch TV. So I say that all to say that I realized that us not being friends, I would always blame him, but it was really like me. You know, I just didn't know how to let him be himself without him feeling like it was not acceptable to me. Because I would say, why would your mom let you watch TV? Like, why do you guys have all these TVs in the house, right? Like, why is this entertainment for you? Whereas my mom would have us like read books or go outside, you know? And so the pandemic just showed me that I needed to be able to allow myself to be soft enough for him to feel safe enough to be vulnerable enough, you know, to like be my friend, if that makes sense in a weird way. And then I realized that men are actually more complicated than us women. I don't think we really say this out loud enough because they're so quiet and they're so like just inside of themselves, and we're not as much, right? But anyway, I think that at the end of the day, I just, you know, I really had to pray, Lord, help me to be a better friend, like for Vaughn, instead of saying he's not my friend, right? Like I realized that I wasn't his, if that makes sense.
Nicole, I really like the fact that you own that.
Yeah,
That
that was
you,
hard.
instead of putting that on him or shaming the way he was raised, you owned it. It's just different. Not that it was wrong, it was just different. And you noticed that you need to make the change.
Yeah.
You know, I'm big on owning my stuff now. You know, if somebody says, I'm not going out in left field, but, you know, if I made them feel a certain way, I don't just say, oh, and I have done that in the past, been dismissive. Just take it and listen for a minute and see if that could really be true, or how they could have interpreted my behavior, you know? So that's really good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I thought you said three things too that I wrote down. You said being soft enough, sensitive enough, so that he could be vulnerable. And sometimes as a man, when you get that temperature change, if you will, that temperature change response, it causes a man not to be as vulnerable as a lot of times women want their men to be, because it takes away something from us and it makes us have to be pulled back. And so I appreciate that statement. It's very powerful, being soft enough. And that's, in fact, I have in my notes, it talks about the role of a woman is supposed to be tender. And you think of the opposite of that. A man doesn't want a tough woman. He wants a tender, responsive woman that when he touches her leg, she gets dizzy. But I mean, that a man doesn't want a woman who's going to challenge him on every decision he makes and then criticize him because he's indecisive. You got to trust his decision even when you don't see it the same way. And then if he does make it wrong, you don't say, I told you so. You say, baby, let's do this again. A man needs that. I believe that it might not be so, but I believe one of the top love languages for just about every man is words of affirmation. You'd be surprised what a man will do for you when you talk right to him, and vice versa. A man will be surprised what a woman will do for him when he talks right to her. So that was very good. Thank you.
So we're gonna switch gears a little bit, and we're gonna go to our guest, Mrs. Sheila Staley, and she has some things that she's going to share with us, and then Pastor has a few things that he's going to share, and then we'll open it up to Q&A from our audience, from our viewers, and then if anybody in the small studio audience that we have has any questions, we can take them at that time. Let's hear from Mrs. Staley.
All right, good evening.
Hi. So glad you're with us.
I want to thank Sister Lewis, First Lady, and Pastor Lewis for having me this evening. And I hope you can hear me clearly. Great. All right, then. I've been listening, and many of the things I'm hearing is typical of what everyone seems to be going through right now, who I see in my virtual office, because I haven't been in my office since March. No one's been in their office since March in our practice. But I did want to come and share a few things with you, because I'm not going to try to address specific issues per se, except if it comes up in questions. But I do want those who are listening to understand that this pandemic that we've been going through and all the other chaotic things that we've been going through in our culture that's impacting us, it is new the way it's happening, but there have been so many examples in the Word of how things like this have happened before. And God has a blueprint for how He wants us to respond. So with my background being one of marriage and family therapy and one of biblical counseling, I tend to try to ground what I'm saying in the Word before I begin to say it, even to my clients. Okay? So bear with me for a few moments, because I'm praying that this is an encouragement as well as some practical applications. First of all, I want you to reflect on and remember what God has said to us in Isaiah 43. He starts out by saying, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine." Then he takes us through at least 3 different explanations of when we pass through the waters, when we pass through the rivers, when we pass through the fire, we're not going to be destroyed. Sometimes what we go through right now feels like it's going to destroy us. But we got to remember whose we are, first of all, and that, as Pastor was saying earlier, if this is right, the relationship between God and you, then you're able to work out the horizontal relationship that's going on in your marriage and with your children. Because this pandemic has had a great impact, not just on marriages, but on everybody in the family. Children, many of them are not expressing because they don't have words to express what they're going through. Young adults don't have words to express what they're going through, but they are going through, and many of them act out and don't follow through on what they normally would do in the family. So this is very unusual time. And the Word talks about in Isaiah 43 that we can't remember the things of old. We can't. God is trying to do a new thing. If we belong to him, then he sees us. He hasn't forgotten about the situations we find ourselves in, nor the issues that come up in your relationship. He sees us, and he's trying to do a new thing. Now, I definitely believe that when we go through difficult times and challenges, that the pressure is down. It's going to press you down, and what's in you is going to come out. You know, the word talks about what's in the heart and what defines what comes out your mouth, and also defines what happens in your behavior. So a lot of individuals are experiencing behaviors and things that have been buried, that haven't had time to address in relationships, are really heating up because the pressure's on. They're already going through some sense of despair because of first of all, my client been packed in a small apartment with 4 small children, 2-bedroom apartment, having to school them. The mom can't get out, ages between 12 going down to 3, or they have had situations where the husband comes in, and because she's attending to all the issues in the home, she doesn't have time to do the things in the home because of the children in the home. He's got high expectations of certain things being available when he comes home. She has high expectation of relief when he comes home, and the children are ready to run out the back door because they can't go out and play, all right? Because many of them live in urban situations, or they live in situations where the COVID count has been very high and their parents are afraid to let them out. So you got a time capsule for a bomb to go off. And every week I've got to talk to you right now, like they're dying, okay? But I can't handle, I'm dying every week. So every week I'm trying to ground them before we can address the issues. Pressure, circumstances brings what has been ignored over the years out, particularly in marital relationships. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, because if you are really a child of God, he's going to shake the tree. He wants good fruit coming out, and you're the tree. So marriage is one way of pressing it down. Singles have another way of being pressed down in this pandemic. So I do not know if all of the people there tonight are married or single, but they're all married? Okay. But I may drop a hint to tell you your single friends, okay, also, all right? So I would say, number one, you've got to change your heart, how you're thinking, number one. Remember what I said, the word says out of the heart proceeds the thoughts, evil thoughts. And it gives a whole list of all the things, fornication, hatred, all the things, rage, all the things that can come out because it's coming from your heart. So you got to change the way you're thinking, which is the first thing, number one, okay? And in changing the way you're thinking, you've got to establish some hope. You've got to realize that God is still there and he's still able. He still cares for you. We all know the scriptures, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. You probably can recite it in your sleep. And all thy ways acknowledge, and he will direct your path. But I just discovered in ministering to me during this time, another scripture in Proverbs, Psalms, it's Psalm 28, 7. And I'm going to read it to you from the English Standard Version. The Lord is my strength, in him my heart trusts, and I am helped. My heart exalts, and with my song I give thanks to him. So there are a couple of things there that helps me to remember whose I am, W-H-O-S-Z, okay? That he's my strength, number one. And I can trust him with my heart. And my heart is where everything takes place that comes out in my mouth, for my speech, and in my other thoughts, and in my behavior. So if he's my strength, I can trust him because he keeps all of his promises. And he already said, I'm his. He summoned me. He summoned me. I didn't summon myself. He's involved in me. And I am helped. He said, I'll be helped in any situation. So I give thanksgiving even before it happens. I calm myself. I give thanksgiving. So in these situations that you're dealing with that is directly resulting from ignoring or maybe not having realized certain certain issues in your relationship with your husband, with your wife, with your children, and now that you're all pressed together, is running over, you want to escape, calm down. Calm down. All right? Be grateful that it is coming up the way it's coming up now, because God wants to do a new thing. And I'm going to keep saying that. He wants to do a new thing. He wants you to change. He wants you to address it. Okay? So, normally, when things that are, how should I say, uncomfortable, distressing in a relationship, one that's birthed out of frustration and anger, normally we erupt, we get angry. Our first response is anger. Think about it as a person who's in quicksand, or a person's on a boat. In the Gospels, the apostles, they woke up, disciples, they were panicking. When you fall in quicksand, you've seen all these cowboy movies of the horses and everybody falling in quicksand. You start getting frantic. You start moving around. You start trying to get out yourself. And the more you move around, the more you panic about it, the deeper down you go. What the Lord wants you to do is when that comes up, avoid responding like you would respond in the flesh. Don't all of a sudden begin to get hot and angry, blow up. As was said earlier, don't become what we would say passive aggressive. And don't become what I would consider volatile in your speech and in your behavior. Don't slay everybody by your tongue in the home, nor by your behavior, nor withdraw and avoid everybody because you're angry. Nor fail to listen to understand and begin to give everything that's said to you a negative interpretation. You're always blaming me. Nor begin to, what I say, pull things from the past and begin to apply that to the situation when it doesn't belong there. There's just a few examples, but don't respond in a natural way. Don't respond fleshy. Relax, breathe. When things are happening during the pandemic and it rubs you the wrong way, before you open your mouth, breathe, relax, breathe. Count to 10. Think of yourself sitting on a beach, someplace you like to be. Count backwards from 10 to 1. In, out, breathe, and let yourself feel like you're calming down. Relax. That's the first thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do, and that's what they would tell you if you were falling in quicksand too. They would say relax. The less you struggle, the less you go down. More responsibility, somebody's going to come along and help and pull you out. And that's what you really want. You want some help when things are out of control. You really do. So you relax. You avoid struggling, because things can change by using natural ways of changing them. If you're in the flesh, it's not going to change. It's going to get worse. All right? We talk about walking in the spirit. And I truly believe in those circumstances, God wants you to calm down so that you will begin to think differently. And you will begin to put aside the normal solution to how you would handle the problem, and let somebody else speak into your life and into your relationship, namely the Spirit of God and godly counsel. And I'm going to say why I say that in a moment. All right? So he wants us to let go of our solution and put his solution in place. That's what he wants you to do in these days. Again, he's trying to do a new thing, and you need to recognize what he's trying to do. If your marriage has holes in it, or if there's areas of your marriages that have not grown, this is a perfect time for God to show it up in your life. Where are you going? You've got time, in most cases, to work on this, particularly if you really have a surrendered heart to the Lord. He's going to let you know you need to work on these things. I heard Pastor speaking about how we as women sometimes will respond to our husband's leadership. God can speak to us now because we can't run away from having to deal with our husbands in the home. If we're used to running our homes our own way, maybe it's time to listen to God, and there's another way to do it, because now he's there more present and he sees some things that need to change rather than us resisting. So we need to be willing to listen and to slow down and to surrender a little more than what we did. Okay? We also need to know that in the midst of all this, we're dealing with stress. Okay? This is stress. So I'm going to run down a whole list of things that you need to be aware of that will help you to be in your right mind, which is God's mind, when you try to deal with the issues that are going on in your marriage or in your family during this time. One is you need to get adequate sleep. I've heard this so often from people who have nothing to do with medicine. Get sleep, 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 sleep. Number one. Then make sure you're eating right. That's also important. Right now, it's easy. You probably want to order out and get more junk food because junk food is comforting. But everyone is saying eat right. They're saying get the right vitamins, get the right minerals, drink enough water because that's the way you'll build up your system to fight. You need, and see, Pastor demonstrated. He just picked up his bottle, he drank his water. Great, okay? We want to make sure our kids are doing the same thing. We want to make sure our kids are getting the vitamins they need, okay? Because it's important during this time, all right? You want to not be isolated. Isolation is a problem during the pandemic. For me, as far as I'm concerned, with my clients, it can be a slow killer. By isolation, I mean you're all in the home together, but you don't reach out past your home. This is your little pod. Your problems stay there. The issues you're dealing with stay there. And it becomes very depressing after a while. Isolation will take you into another zone. You need to be connected. We cannot get to one another in physical proximity within the church. We are the family of God. And many of us are used to getting our strength from God giving us strength in the people we interact with at the church. We're encouraged. We're accepted. We're loved. And some of us live in situations right now where it is very toxic. Sometimes it's hidden activities going home that you have failed to share with anybody. Oftentimes there are husbands being abused, wives being abused, children being abused, drugs are in the home. There's a lot of things that can go on that you seem normal to everybody else. But when the doors close, it's when these things go on. And when you're dealing with a pandemic and everybody's there, the husband's working home, the children are working home, the wife is working home. These things are more of a less than a problem, more than a problem. They are actually a disaster waiting to happen. So you need to be connected with people. You need to be willing to get on with people on FaceTime and on Zoom and on whatever virtual platform you use in order to not talk about necessarily issue, but gain strength from one another. A sister who's willing to meet with you once a week or twice a week to talk about the things of the word and have prayer together with you. And I've seen a lot of great things come out of this time of the pandemic. People are feeling isolated from each other and they're doing things they normally wouldn't do on Zoom. They're having coffee and tea together on Zoom. They're doing their exercises on Zoom. They're having date night on Zoom. Couples are having date night on Zoom. What I'm saying is break the isolation. Build in people time with other people, with people who you can trust, who you can share with, who might be willing to help you walk through some things rather than you be burdened down. Do the same thing for your children. A great many children are suffering from mental health problems that they don't talk about during this time. They're lonely, they're isolated, all right? They don't see their friends. You need to create opportunities like that for them, all right? Limit your media. Limit the media that you're exposed to because that increases stress. And when you're watching MSNBC, Fox, CNN, half the day, particularly during the time of the election, the campaign and the election and everything that happened this summer. I've heard the saints talk about how anxious they are. I've heard it in counseling. I've heard how it's darkened their thinking. You can't think freely. You can't think creatively when you're overwhelmed by those things. So lessen it, all right? Get and provide comfort to somebody else. We're all struggling together. When a husband and wife are struggling, if they're able to reach out and help somebody else struggling, you encourage one another. to do things, love and good works. This is just practical things to do, right? You don't keep your struggle to yourself. When you start talking, you find out someone else is struggling just like you are. And it's strength in that. It's not mean, well, we'll all have a pity party together. No, we put our heads together and we figure out how to survive in the midst of the struggle. So we need to be open. Many of us were taught what happens in our home stays in our home. It's not productive. It's explosive. We have to be willing to share and help each other. So that's a biggie with me. I have a client right now that I'm trying to work that through. He is so depressed, he is about to lose his business. And he has worked very hard to maintain it. He's a believer, all right? He loves the Lord. His wife loves the Lord. He's been done a lot of discipling. And the thing is that his men who disciple him are reaching for him. They're knocking on the door. One came into his secluded place in his home, his wife said, and said, we're not going to let you go down like that. That's the type of interplay you need during the pandemic. But if you don't allow people in your life, they can't help you when you're just about down on the bottom. So don't be what I call embarrassed. That's the wrong type of pride, right? The word says pride comes before a fall, and that's with men and women, all right? Managing children at home during this pandemic is extremely hard. If that's not one of your strengths, management, talk to another sister who has those strengths so that your load will be lightened. She can share her gift, and God will provide you an opportunity to share your gift with her. You're talking about how to survive within the pandemic. That's a good way. So don't be isolated. Don't be isolated. Singles, don't be isolated. Don't go on a dating network like crazy for your singles, but don't be isolated. All right? Okay. Be extra kind to yourself and kind to everybody in the home. Show forgiveness and grace liberally. Liberally. All right? They mess up, give forgiveness. Give grace, because everybody's underneath the same pressure, all right? Okay? Create new routines. Create new routines, and that's important. Life has changed as we know it. So we got to be willing to look at what do we need to do in our home, in our relationship, that we can survive this, that we can manage this, where we can have peace in our home, where everybody can continue to grow, that everybody can continue to be united in love. Don't be afraid to try new things. Maybe it means a change in how you normally do dinner. Maybe it's a change in how you do your weekend. Maybe you need to not be so rigid about certain things in the home. Okay, you got everybody home. The house is not going to be looking like our house and beautiful, home and beautiful. You need to be able to breathe and say, all right, we've got this one room. It's going to be chaotic. I'm going to ignore it. Okay, because people aren't coming over anyway. So why make it such a major production? Okay, keep the major places clean. That needs to be clean and pandemic clean for everybody in your house. Work on the most important things, the essentials. That does take down stress level. All right. As I already said, use relaxation and breathing techniques. They're important.
I have a question. You said people can't. You said people can't come over. See, I like the house to look a certain way. Lisa says to me, "It doesn't have to look like a museum," and I struggle with that. I have to tell you, I struggle with that. I do. I struggle with that. We would get into arguments over cleaning techniques because I was the one who was like the cleaner. And one time she'd be cleaning, I'd come behind her. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just wiping off the counter. She said, I already did that. I said, I saw a smear on there. And we get into an argument. And so now we're in a good place now. But we used to have to clean, and she would clean downstairs, I would clean upstairs. We couldn't even clean on the same floor. And I know with this pandemic, I struggle with things being a certain way.
But that was really a good point. We'll let you get back to your point.
I need therapy.
You have the therapist here. Right. But it doesn't have to be. Nobody's coming over. Tanera, nobody's coming over. Go ahead, sister.
He's getting encouraged. Somebody else is saying to him, go. But that's something you have to negotiate between each other. Because let's say one of the couples sitting out there are similar to the two of you. One can't stand anything being messed up and dirty. Another one doesn't mind chaos. So the fact is that you've got to be able to communicate. That's part of learning how to manage that conflict. That's a conflict management issue. And you got to learn how to really manage that where you can meet halfway on that. And my advice, if you have that type of situation, that you think about the home and you say, where must it be a certain way for me? And maybe out of 9 rooms, 5 of them have to be a certain way for you. Okay? It might be on the first look, you coming in the house, you don't want to see clutter. You just want to see cleanliness from the door to the kitchen. You want the kitchen all the time to be straightened up and clean. The bathrooms must be clean. And my bedroom and my study, my library, okay? And everything else I'm okay with. You got to decide what is going to work for you, each person. And that's when good communicating and conflict management skills come in. This is a good time for those who don't have good skills like that, either to tie into a therapist who will help you, read books that will help you, or find online types of, what shall I say, podcasts that talk about those type of things. Financial issues, you guys going up a wall because the money's not there, a good time to connect with an online. And I think probably pastors probably aware of some that you can do it on your own and learn some real good financial tools, because I guarantee in areas of communication, one person is dominant in the communication role and knows how to right through issues to their side, and the other one says it's not worth it, and they just let it go. Meanwhile, inside they're simmering. Oh, it's like a volcano. And with too much, it's going to be put on that person who's quiet and laid back and kind of compromises all the time. Eventually, they're going to blow. It's going to be a big boom. So you need to learn how to handle that better, because that's not the solution. That is not the solution. Okay? And then finally, allow yourself during this time to realize there's some things you have to let go that were very important to you. And there may be things that you want to do that you can't do, or because of just the pandemic itself, financials, people have had to do major changes in their financials. You've lost a job. You're not able to maintain an independent business right now. There are some things you're going to have to let go through grief. It's like a grieving process. And you got to recognize you're grieving it. And your spouse, you need not to isolate yourself and close in from your spouse. You need to let your spouse in, let them understand, talk to them until they understand your heart, what you're going through, what's happening here with you, not how it's impacting them. And I hope everyone's listening to what I'm saying. A spouse, when the other spouse has had something removed from their lives that was important to them, in any situation, they're grieving. You may be grieving too. But what we're going to do is be kind to one another, and we're going to listen to one another. And we're not going to go with prejudgment of them based upon what our expectations are and what our disappointments are, because that doesn't help a relationship. That causes the grief to intensify. And in a home where the parents, the husband and wife, are grieving, eventually the children are going to be right there with you. They already know there's a loss, and their ability to grieve is not as developed as yours. So they go in. So you want to deal with that. You want to talk about it between each other. And if it's impacting the children, you want to talk to them. Allow them, if they're old enough, to express themselves. And if they're little, you want them to know that everything will be okay. And you need to let them know in this biblical way, we're here and we will make sure you're okay. But even more so, we have a Heavenly Father that's going to make sure we're okay. So the thing is that remember whose you belong to in all of this. I mean, this pandemic is going to probably go on. They talk, and don't, for a while, they keep saying by the summer we should be okay. I don't put my hope in that. I really don't. There's been too many reversals. We need to realize that God sees, and He sees us, and He's in control. And no matter what happens about this pandemic, this government, what's going on culturally in our country and the world, God still sees us. And even though some of this, He allowed us to come into this by our own sinful will, He still sees His children, and He even sees those who are not His children. And He always is in control. So we need to understand in our own relationship, what can we do? Meaning as individuals, husband, what can the husband do? wife, what can a husband do? What is for God to do? So you can only do what you can do. You can try to impact what your spouse does, influence them to want to come out and do and respond correctly. But most of all, you have to put your hope in God and realize some things we have to relinquish, release, and rest and trust in God to get it happen for us. And so that's basically just a little bit I want to say about this, rather than get into some other things.
That was really good, really good. I wanted to comment on a few of the things that she encouraged us to do and not to do. I love that she says, don't be isolated. Now, even though we're kind of isolated in our homes, because of technology, we have the ability to reach out. You can text people, you can FaceTime people, whatever the other one is for the, Zoom, but what's Android, whatever Android. Does Android have a feature? I'm just cracking on Android people. But whatever way that you have of communicating, even though you're alone, you don't have to be isolated. You know, you can, like my mom, she wouldn't want me to tell you this, but she's 81, and I don't know, probably not a marriage thing at 81, but she knows how to do Zoom. We taught her how to use Zoom because we have not been able to gather like we used to, so she can use Zoom, you know, and we can reach out, we can text each other. If somebody comes to your mind, reach out and text them. Don't be isolated, because that really, Tim Ross said this early on in the pandemic. He said distance sometimes equals distortion. And when you're distant from people, the feelings get distorted, you get kind of mixed up, oh, are they mad at me or this or that? But don't allow yourself to go there in your emotions. I love that.
I think the other thing I wrote down is listen to understand. Sometimes we listen to respond. And we need to just take the time to listen and understand why that person is feeling like that, why they said what they said, and not necessarily always feel like when something is communicated, you have to have a rebuttal, or you have to have a solution, or you have to have a better way, or you have to have an amendment to it. Sometimes we just need to listen to understand.
That's
All right.
really good. Not really listening if you don't understand. I'm not going to say it.
You need some help with that?
If you don't understand, the person really hasn't communicated properly.
yeah.
Because we need to be able to understand
Right.
what the other party is saying. But the other thing that I love that she said.
Hold on. I think we moved too fast off of that one. Because sometimes in a relationship, when people are talking, sometimes we assume the person understands us. And sometimes we need to ask them, can you repeat back to me what I said? Because I want to be clear that what you're hearing is not going through your filter and saying something that I didn't say. And sometimes that can cause hostility in a relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think that if we listen to understand, then we don't need to interrupt. You know what I mean? When a person is talking, it's so important, because when you interrupt a person or you cut them off, it makes the person feel like what I'm saying doesn't have value to you. And when a person feels like they doesn't have value, then they shut down. And what happens a lot of times is people will close their spirit. When they close their spirit, they cut off communication to their body, and there's no intimacy. So that understanding part is major for some people, because one of the things I hear a lot of times in counseling is they don't listen to me. I've told them 100 times, they're not listening to me. And I think we have to be more intentional when it comes down to making sure when we say something that our spouse understands what we're saying. Because a lot of times we don't. We assume a lot of things in our relationships that you should know how I feel. We've been together for 10 years. The assumption that people are going to stay the same is really not something that's valid, because we are changing all the time. And I think it puts people and their relationship and their communication in a place that the relationship falls apart. And communication is one of the major keys of how a relationship starts. And the lack of communication is one of the major reasons why a relationship falls apart. So communication to start a relationship, and the lack of communication is the thing that causes it to fall apart. So listening to understand is very important. Like when you're saying something to me, so I say back to you, so this is why this causes you to feel angry. And then either you affirm that or give me a clearer understanding of why you're feeling a certain way. I think that's very important.
Are you finished?
Can I
don't wanna
add
interrupt
something to that?
Go ahead now.
Yeah,
I'm trying to give
I
us
was
some
going to
count.
say that. I love you too. I was going to say that, and underlining what Pastor was saying, is that one of the things that happens in communication is that we don't know how to listen, reflecting on what we say. Oftentimes, this is a very difficult statement to help people understand, even though I'll break it down. They have a hard time getting into this. Listen for what is going on in their heart. And because they already know what they want to say, they already know where they are on that. They already know what their perception is. That becomes a barrier to any more communication. Right there is where the conflict starts. You're not listening to their opinions. You're not listening for their expectations. You're not listening for their anything else. So right away, the door goes up, and they don't really want to get into the deep things, so that you know what the need is, and you know what their desire is. It's just locked in because you failed to get deep. The word says that the heart of a man is like deep waters. It takes skill to draw it out. I can't remember where it is, but I'm pretty sure it's in Proverbs. That the heart is really deep, which takes time. So, that's a major problem, because in marriage, people take off to the races and they don't even understand. And then the other thing that happens is there are pitfalls they have. One being avoidance, one being withdrawal, one being negative interpretation. And they're off to the races with that one. And that sets a pattern to the marriage. And some of those patterns can lead to divorce or emotional separation or whatever. So it's real important to listen to the heart.
That's really good.
This is good time for it.
Yeah, that's excellent. Another thing that I loved, and we'll go through these, and then we have some questions coming in, but to show forgiveness and grace. That's what we talked about earlier. Show forgiveness and grace. We all need grace. All of us need grace. And if you give grace, you're going to get it back. You're going to get it back. God is faithful in that way. So show forgiveness and grace. Don't hold grudges. Don't hold on to stuff.
And I think that when you forgive, it means to release. Mm-hmm. That's one of the definitions of forgiveness. And so when you release something from it, you need to not constantly bring them back into that prison once you release them. Mm-hmm. And you bring them back into the prison when you keep regurgitating what you say you forgive them of. Mm-hmm. You see? Mm-hmm. And like, you spent our Christmas money last year. Now we're about to go on vacation. What you going to do with the money? You just put them back in that prison by regurgitating what you say you released them from. Mm-hmm. So, I believe that true forgiveness is releasing a person. And when you release them, then you're not holding it against them in the future.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Okay?
That's good. Create new routines. Has anybody had to do that during the pandemic? I know we did. We needed to do some things differently. We took up cycling and just started doing things differently. I started cooking more instead of, going out as much as we used to. But just creating some new routines, and some of that stuff we'll keep,
And as couples, you have to create new routines, even when it comes down to your intimacy. You don't have to always make love in bed. You don't always have to do it at nighttime. You can have the breakfast of champions and do it in the morning. I mean, I'm talking about, you've got to be creative. Am I talking too much, y'all? But you have to be creative to keep it fresh. I remember when I was dating Lisa, we would sit in front of her mom's house and steam up the car windows. You remember that? I mean, we was kissing, wasn't any oxygen in the car. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I meant, y'all. But you understand what I'm saying to you? Do something fun. Go down to the park. Go to the park. Park the car. And you can stay there till after midnight. You remember you had to be home before curfew. Now you're married. Do some fun. Okay, move on, Lise. They ain't ready. Come on, Jay, help a brother out, man.
Create new routines. Don't be regimented. You know, I know some of y'all like things a certain way all the time and you're kind of rigid.
Change up.
Yes, change up. He's pretty rigid. He likes things a certain way, but sometimes just let it go.
Something.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I'm going to scoot to some questions.
Oh, now you're moving on, ain't you? See, now you're moving on. I'm trying to get you to understand.
I understand.
Communicating, trying to get you to understand, girl.
I understand. I understand. So I'm gonna open it up to questions. If anybody here has questions, you can wave your hand, and Serge will come with a microphone. But here's a good question, and I'm going to address this to Ms. Sheila up there. Here it is. My husband is very short-tempered with me about any and everything, and sometimes says things that are very hurtful, and I feel myself becoming more and more resentful and angry and discouraged and disrespected. Most of the things are small, but are blown up, so it sounds like he overreacts. I just need a starting point with how to handle this. It could be my hair doesn't look right today, or we can't decide what's for dinner, or anything, laugh out loud. And when I try to talk, he cuts me off without even being able to finish my sentence. Help, 3 exclamation points.
Okay, all right then. This is a bigger issue. If he's been doing this all through the relationship, the marriage, then this is definitely a bigger picture, okay? This person himself is angry man. He's angry, and his anger is misplaced. Mm-hmm. It's not about her, it's about other things in his life. And the issue becomes whether or not he is willing to get some help with this or not. For her, she has to decide if she's going to set boundaries, okay? That's the one thing. I don't know whether or not she's a very assertive woman, but she needs to come into her own to begin to set boundaries, to have a conversation with somebody they both trust, sitting there, maybe pastor if he's a member of the church, but where she sets boundary in that if he's going to talk to her like that, she will not stay in the room with him. She'll leave the room, and when he calms down, he can have a conversation. Something simple like that. Because if she has never let him know by her behavior that she is not going to be talked to like that she's worthy of a different type of conversation, then she just kind of gotten into the habit as part of his way of dealing with her. So she has also feel safe to do that. If she feels that he is a man who will go to another level with her because she will not stay and hear him, then you're talking about safety. And how far will he go? And at that point, the relationship may not be safe for her, and she may have to make other decisions whether or not she's going to be there or not. So it is a more challenging question than just a basic answer. Mm-hmm. It has to do with how long this has been going on, if this has been his way of communicating to him, her, all through the marriage, if she has set boundaries with him of respect, which there should be lines of respect in every marriage between a husband and a wife. There should be lines in terms of communication that is expected and not tolerated. But if it has been tolerated and she wants to change it, she's going to need a third person to help her change it.
That's really good, and I like what you said about setting boundaries. So one boundary could be for her not to stay in the room with him when he's, losing his temper and directing that anger.
I had a hard time hearing that.
I'm sorry. So you talked about her setting boundaries. So one
Yes.
boundary would be leaving that room, not allowing him to continue that way.
Mm-hmm.
What are other boundaries that? And I know that it's deeper than you could cover in this session. But what are some other things that she can do until they can get to to a therapist?
Well, that is, be honest with you, that is the simplest one for her to try to initiate, to be honest with you. She can communicate to him that do not speak to me like that verbally, but he is in a habit apparently of speaking to her like that. So it has to be more than saying, don't speak to me like that. She has to be one that I'm physically not to allow you to have access to my ears for you to say that to
That's
me
good.
because it is demeaning, it is disrespectful,
Yes.
and she needs to, leave. Now, she could write him a letter if she wants to
Mm-hmm.
about it, but if she has never addressed this and she brings this up, that's why I'm saying she may need a third party who both of them trust
Yes.
to be there when she decides that she's going to do this. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I
He is
do.
in a habit. He's been trained that it's okay for me to talk to her like me, to my wife like this. And I'm saying he's an angry man.
Yeah.
There's other things going on within him.
Yeah,
And
especially
we're
if,
told,
yeah. Especially if
frustrated,
he
he's
gets
angry and he's frustrated and may have nothing to do with her. It may have a lot to do with his personal journey, how he sees himself, build up frustrations about other things.
yeah.
But it's misplaced on her.
And she's probably the closest one to him. So
I beg
she's
your pardon,
an
I couldn't hear
easy,
you.
she's probably the closest one to him and like an
That's-
easy target, so to speak. And
Yes.
especially if she's not speaking up, she's,
Yes.
we teach
Yeah.
people how to treat us.
Yeah.
And would you say that anger is a secondary?
I'm
Would
sorry.
you say that anger is a secondary emotion to the fact that it's coming from something? There's something that triggers the anger.
Yes, yes, yes. It could be some trauma in his own life. It could be him not feeling valued. Okay. It could be sometimes unbeknownst, it could be her tone or how she speaks to him. But even if it's her tone and how she speaks to him, that type of behavior is not one that should be tolerated. They should be able to sit down and talk about the fact, what is causing this? And if every time she opens her mouth, he is belittling her, speaking to her in a disrespectful way, then she would not even be able to do that with him.
Right.
That's why I'm saying she would need a third party there. And she would have to feel safe. She would have to feel safe.
Yes, that's really good.
Very good. Very good.
To our viewing audience, it's on the screen right now. If you have questions, send your questions, and this is confidential. We're not saying names, and it won't go any further. Questions to smpierce@seedsofgreatness.org. Here's another question. We've been married for 5 years and have had our first child together in the last year, but I am so bored in the relationship. Is there something done? If there's something done outside the room, I plan it. How can I get my husband to be more spontaneous and try new things, or even make plans for us to do something more exciting? I'll take the lead on this one.
Yeah, because
I don't wait for my husband to make plans.
Nope, she sure don't.
I say, if he's not making a plan, I say, this is what we're going to do. What do you think of this?
I'll pack a suitcase.
Because I like to do stuff.
That's right.
I like to do stuff. So I'm not going to just sit and wait for him. His mind is in other places. And I know we need some different things to do. So I don't wait.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't wait. And we plan a vacation. I try to show him what we're going to do ahead of time. I try to, if I planned it a year in advance, I'm trying to get him. He don't care. The night before we're trying to go, where are we staying at again? What kind of car did you rent? Where are we going to eat the day before? He don't care, so I do it.
Well, you know what I've learned? I've learned that that's something you enjoy. That's something I don't enjoy. I would be frustrated trying to do that. And in a relationship, you got to find out what your strengths are, and you got to find out what your weaknesses are. It would not be good for me to try to do that.
Yeah, but so if you're, and Sheila, you can add to this, but if you're bored,
Take the initiative.
take the initiative. You be creative, and don't just wait for the other party to do something. They might not be creative that way.
No, I'm good.
Can you add anything
No,
to that?
no, Lisa, you're right, because boredom is not your spouse's problem, it's your problem.
Right.
So you have to.
Sister Sheila,
that's
could
my
you say
stand
that
on
again?
one.
Could you say
What'd
that
you say?
again? Could you say that again?
I said boredom is not your husband or wife's problem, it's your problem.
Yeah,
So if you're bored, plan something to do
yes.
around, something you would enjoy doing with your husband or your wife.
Know what their love
Yep.
language is.
Yep.
Plan it, don't
Yep,
wait, plan
That's
it.
right. My husband would be in this church every day of every week if I let him. He wouldn't care if we had a
That's
vacation or not.
boundaries.
He is just as content as he could be to be right here in this building, standing around looking if anything's wrong, get it fixed. He would stay here forever. So
You
in
know what?
order for
That's-
me to get him disconnected, I got to take him far away.
She takes me out
The
of the country.
further away I take him, the more disconnected. Time changes, yes.
And what do I do?
He's
Lisa,
like, Lisa, this was such a good idea.
Right.
He will.
Lisa, you're being his strengthener. You know, help me in another meeting for
Listen.
help me to strengthen her. So
Okay.
you see, that's why man was not supposed to be alone, particularly in marriage. You need this help me to help you.
Listen,
stay balanced.
she plans
You're
the
his strengthener.
vacations, and when she needs prayer, she comes to me. So we complement each other. If she needs a breakthrough, I'm her breakthrough brother.
That's it.
You see, so we just help each other out.
Yeah, we have different.
But the thing is, one of the things I don't do is when she plans something, I don't criticize it. I don't criticize it because she put in the effort. And here's the thing, when she plans it, she has my interest at heart. She's not just doing it for herself in a selfish way. This is what I want to do. She plans it in such a way that she knows what I'm going to enjoy with her. So she
Yes.
takes the initiative.
And I will say, like, I'll be planning stuff. I said, give me some ideas. I don't just want to do things that I want to do, you know, because I know what I like, and I try to incorporate what he likes. And so it's, give me something. Tell me.
She'll say, we're going to go lay on the beach by a tree. And she knows I like the shade.
So I'll buy him a chair.
So she got me a chair in the shade. So that, but like I said, if you're going to take the initiative and plan some things because your husband doesn't want to do that, just keep in mind some of the things that he likes also, so he can enjoy it with you.
Yes.
Anybody here in the studio audience have a question? Yeah, if anybody needs a card, you can get a card. Get a card. This was good tonight. This was really good. Y'all good?
There's two things I just want to mention to you, and we've mentioned this throughout our workshops. You know, intentional and intentions are two different things. Intentional and intentions are two different things. There are people have good intentions that never go to the gym. They have intentions, but they never go to the gym. People have intentions on doing something, but they never do it. One of the things you need to understand about intentions, good intentions are cousin to procrastination. Good intentions, I intended to tell her I love her, but you never did. I intended to help her out around the house, but you never did. Good intentions does not get the job done. You have to be intentional, which means that you do it on purpose. And that's what it has to be in a relationship. You have to be intentional, which means that there are deliberate, calculated actions that supports her love language. It's very important. Because a lot of times people say, well, I intended to help her out around the house. I know her love language is acts of service. I intended to do the dishes. I just didn't get around to it. That doesn't do anything for her. That doesn't do anything for her. I intended to fill up her gas tank. She's on the side of the road out of gas now. So we can say, I intended to do something. I intended to be accountable, but you're still not. And so being intentional is different than having just good intentions. And a lot of times say, well, people get in arguments, well, I intended to do this. You got to know my heart. No, I don't know your heart. I know your actions. All right, so I want to encourage you when it comes down to accountability, when it comes down to being kind, when it comes down to words are so important when it comes down to the strength of your relationship. I have down here, I've said this many times, and if you've been in any marriage counseling with me, there are 3 T's when it comes down to communication. And you need to remember these 3 T's. Being tactful, watching your tone, and timing. Being tactful means being sensitive to the needs of the person when you're talking.
Another definition for tactful is to say something difficult
In a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important in a relationship. I know in the 37 years that I've been married to Lisa, I wasn't always tactful. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even know what the word tactful meant until she told me. And then I looked it up and I got a clearer definition of it. But I wasn't always tactful when I was upset. I wasn't always tactful when she was presenting something to me that I didn't want to hear. I wasn't always tactful. But I've learned to be tactful, and I've learned to be more sensitive to what I say in response to her, taking into consideration how it's going to make her feel. And I want to encourage you, when it comes down to communication, listen with the purpose of understanding what the person is saying. If the person is saying you're working too much, you're not home enough, understand they're saying, I want to spend more time with you. They're not telling you to quit your job. They're saying, I want to spend more time with you. Understand. Listen to understand. Don't listen to respond and have an argument. It's so important. Watching your tone, controlling the volume in a conversation. Controlling the volume in the conversation. As a man of God, as a leader in your home, you should never be hollering and cussing at your woman. Ever. Brothers, talk to me. All right? She is your queen. I heard Michael Friedman say this. He said, your spouse is the product of your intelligent choice. Your spouse is the product of your intelligent choice. Why would you be so smart to marry her and then stupid enough to not listen to her?
Say that again.
I'll say it again. All right? It says your spouse is the product of your intelligent choice. You were so intelligent that you chose that woman. If you were intelligent enough to choose her, then why would you be so smart to marry them and so stupid not to listen to them?
That's good.
All right? So I want to encourage you to be intentional. We got some more questions. I'll stop with that. I can
Your
go.
other last one was timing.
And timing.
Knowing when to
Yeah,
say
timing is important. I said to my wife, I'm the type of person, 2 times I don't like to deal with problems is when?
First thing in the morning
You got that right.
and last thing at night.
You got that right again, girl. You listening, ain't you?
Yeah.
With an understanding,
Trying.
ain't you?
I'm trying. If I do have to wake him up in the morning with a problem, I kind of do it gently.
Come on, do what you do.
And I just kind of wake him up
Do what
real
you do, girl. Come on,
gently.
do what you do. That's right, baby. Go ahead.
Jerome, Romy,
Do what you do.
I gotta tell you something.
Do what you do. Rub. Come on now. Rub.
That's the day I told him that the dog ate the marriage license the morning of the wedding. That was crazy. That was crazy. Okay, here's 2 more questions, okay? I don't want to let this time go without folks getting their questions answered. Hello, I'm writing to ask for help in my marriage. We have been married 20 years, and we have been having issues with drinking and finances throughout the past few years. During COVID, our issues have been through the roof, and my wife has been talking of separation and divorce way too often, and it's very frustrating to find ways to try to work on it when one of us is leaning more towards separation. Any help would be great, and love that the church has these sessions. So I'm going to start by saying, reach out for help. If you've been going through this for years and you haven't reached out for help, you need to not just put a question in the marriage seminar, but you need to reach out for counseling. You need to reach out for help. My husband tells people this all the time.
I'd say this all the time, and it happened in a marriage counseling session. I was counseling someone, and it was really the Holy Spirit. He said, if your house, he said, most houses have smoke detectors. He said, people need to have smoke detectors in their marriage. And a smoke detector is letting you know that if you don't deal with this, it's a signal to let you know that something is going on in your house that's not normal. And you need to have smoke detectors in your marriage. When the temperature changes in your relationship or gets foggy and you start smelling smoke, things are not right. Reach out for help when you start smelling smoke. It's too late after the house is on fire.
So you got a call. He got a text the other day from somebody saying, Pastor, my smoke detector's going off.
And I called him
And you called him.
and was able to give them some
Yeah.
counsel. And I got a text from them a week ago saying we're in a better place just because they were listening and they observed the smoke detectors in their home.
So
Don't wait. I want to encourage you, and I would encourage you to contact the office, and we'll set up some time
Yes.
for counseling with you, my wife and I. But don't wait until the house is engulfed in flame. The moment you start smelling smoke, the moment you sense the temperature change, you know when the temperature change, you touch her and she pulls away from you. You know when the temperature changes when you're sleeping on two ends of the bed and you get up in the morning and you don't speak, you just grunt at each other. The temperature has changed. And you need to have some detectors, smoke detectors in your relationship that you can say, you know what, I need help. Now I'm gonna tell you something. Our family went through counseling. You know who the stubborn one was that didn't want to go? It was me. It was me. And we went, I submitted to my wife. We went, and it was one of the best decisions we ever made. As a male, you don't want your pride and your ego to cause you to be sleeping alone. Get the help you need when you sense a temperature change or your smoke alarm goes off.
that's good. So for this person, and we're not trying to, we just want you to get the help, not just set, and we'll give you the help. If we can't, we can point you to someone like Ms. Staley, and we have some other counselors as well. But this has been smoldering for a long time, so you gotta do something about this, okay? So this is probably our last one. What suggestions do you have when a spouse always wanting to have a pity party, always finding an issue or a problem one after another, constantly complaining about anything, turning a sunny day into a cloudy situation? Let's go to Sister Sheila for this one.
Yeah. I was just thinking of something that I tell my clients who want to stay on the cloudy side of the street as the storm is coming. Say, let's move to the sunny side of the street. And I have them develop a journal. This is real practical. A gratitude journal every day for as many reasons that you can find that is the dark side of life, problem side of life. I want you to equal that with the sunny side of life. What's going on in your life that day that you should be grateful for. Okay? So that's how we start. It has to do with the way they think, dysfunctional thinking. They're even having exaggerated thinking or, absolute thinking, or they're constantly sabotaging in their thinking. But I would start the sunny side, dark side game in the house. Every night when we get ready to go, we're going to think of something that has been good today, that's going well in our lives.
That's good.
And we're going to be grateful for it. And the wife can do that with them.
That's good.
That's called, you have to take the initiative. You got to have godly influence in this. And
That's really
for
good.
every difficult thing you talk about, we need to have something good to say. He's got to break that thinking pattern.
That's good.
That's very
Yeah,
good.
That's where I would start.
That's very good. One of the things I do also, Sister Sheila, is when I've encountered that in relationships with spouses, I have them sit across from each other, knee to knee in the session, and I say, tell me 3 things you like about your spouse. And then I have the other one say 3 things about what they like about their spouse. And I said, your assignment for the next time we come together is daily. I want you to take at least 10 minutes and say 3 things that you enjoy about your spouse on a daily basis so that you can change the atmosphere of negativity into a positive atmosphere of affirmation.
That's really good. And what she said about the gratitude journal, or just taking some time each night and doing that, it might sound a little corny, but you got to be intentional. It works. It works.
It does
Just start
work.
looking at the bright side. Even in the pandemic, when we can't do all the things that we want to do, let's look at what we can do. Let's look at what we accomplished. Instead of just looking at the areas where we're frustrated, let's look at what we accomplished. Let's look at how far we've come. Let's change it and look at the positive instead. Anybody here in our studio audience have a question or comment that you want to share?
Can I say, as they're raising or looking
Sure.
out, can I say this one thing? I think people don't realize how dysfunctional that type of thinking is. It deteriorates into thinking that begins to destroy your ability to use your mind the way God intended us to, which is to be creative and open to different ways of doing things that will, be healthy and helpful for us. The person needs to realize just how dysfunctional that is for them. They're tearing themselves down
Yeah,
in their self-image, how they see themselves.
that's
Turns
really
what God meant.
That's good. Anybody here in the audience have a question or comment? Drew? Wait, you got to use the mic, honey, so they can hear you online. It's on.
All right, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. I would say to some people to try to, when they go through some things, like go into prayer together. Because sometimes, different emotions and feelings could be going on. And when you just stop and go into prayer, that may help the situation, whatever the situation is in the moment.
I love that coming from you, Drew. That's excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Can I in conclusion read? I'd like to in conclusion read something to you out of the Passion Translation, and this is in. Did I want to read that one there? I think I want to read. I want to read it in Colossians chapter 3. And I'm going to read a few verses, but I want you to hear the heart of God in this in Colossians. It says in the Passion Translation, it says, "Let every wife be supportive and tenderly devoted to her husband, for this is a beautiful illustration of our devotion to Christ. Let every husband be filled with cherishing love for his wife and never be insensitive towards her."
That's good.
And I think it's two words there that really stand out to me. The wife is to be supportive and tender, and the husband is supposed to be sensitive to his wife. And I believe that if we'll make that something that we pursue, to be sensitive to one another and speak to one another the right way. I know the challenges that Lisa and I have had has been when I didn't talk with the right tone or she didn't talk to me the right way. And it caused a level of hostility. But the moment we turned around and apologized to each other and made a decision to be more intentional about how we speak to each other, it takes our relationship to a whole nother level. And I want to encourage you, watch how you speak to one another. Words are powerful. And this is why I've been teaching this for years. Words are so powerful when it comes down to encouraging a person, giving a person confidence, building that person up, or your words can tear a person down, cause them to feel inferior, cause them to feel like they have no value or no self-worth. There's been times I've come to her and apologized to her, or she's come to me and apologized to me, or I've went to my children and said my tone was wrong. I shouldn't have said it in that tone. And it might have been something that needed to be said, but my tone was wrong. And I had to apologize for that. And I want to encourage you, if you say something wrong, don't let the night go without circling around and saying, you know what, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that the way I said that to you, and I apologize for that. Value that in your relationship.
That's really a great thing that Jerome does. He is not one to hold back an apology or to say I was wrong or I'm sorry. I mean, I that's something I've always, big or small, he will apologize, and I appreciate that. Sometimes I need to be faster to apologize, especially when I think I'm right. Like I have a right to feel the way I feel. Why should I apologize? I'm right. You want to be right or you want to be happy?
Right.
What's better, to be right or be happy? You know? So sometime, I have a good friend who says, sometime you have to give up your right to be right. You want to be right or you want to be happy. Even though I think I'm right, I could still apologize because I didn't want it to be this way. I didn't want us to end up in this situation. Even though I still think I'm right. I shouldn't even say it like that. You know, I got to let that go because it negates the apology. But apologize because it blew up. You know, even though you might still think you're right, you don't have to say that. But apologize because it landed the wrong way. It came out the wrong way. Just be quick to squash it. Just let it go. Take the high road. I know my kids would get tired of hearing me say it. I say, take the high road. Don't even worry about it. let stuff go. You got to make your life. We have this big thing of PAM. You know what PAM is? PAM. It's a spray that you spray on the frying pan so stuff don't stick. Spray some PAM on yourself, figuratively, so stuff doesn't stick to you. And apologize. Don't let you should never let days go by without talking to your spouse. Don't let that happen. Don't even let hours go by. I hate that. And it has happened. We're a lot better. But I even hate when it's several hours go by and we're not talking to each other. I don't like that. So I'll step up and say, you know what, Rome, I'm really sorry about this. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. I'm sorry we're in this situation. Be quick to do that. And when you do that, you're showing your kids something too. You're showing your kids that this is not how we do it in our household, you know, because they'll think that's normal. And so when they get married, that's how they'll treat their spouse, because that's what mom and dad do. That's the way you do it. That's normal. That's normal. So you're teaching your kids right now what's normal. What you show them in your home is going to be normal to them. And they're going to grow up and they're going to raise their kids the same way, unless they make a conscious effort not to do it. Conscious effort not to do it. I'll give you a silly example. Jerome grew up, was 8 kids and 2 adults, 10 people in their house. For me, it was my mom and my older sister and me, and then my younger sister. My mom got remarried. We could come in our house, we'd kick off our shoes. We were just relaxed in our house. Just shoes, just kick off and just go on about our business. When I got married to him and I kick off my shoes over there, not like set nicely by the door, but wherever. And that would burn him up.
Yes,
and he would get so irritated. But I realized that was normal in my house. That was acceptable. That was not acceptable in his house. The reason why it wasn't acceptable in his house is because there was 10 people living there.
That's 20 pair of shoes, baby.
That would be 20 shoes all over the place. So, you know, I learned something. That's a little silly analogy, but I did what was normal in my house. That was normal to me. Was it right? I'm not going to say it was wrong, but I'm saying what you're doing.
It wasn't right, Lisa.
But whatever it is that you do, if you're yelling at your spouse, if you're yelling at your kids, if you're pounding the walls, whatever it is that you're doing, that's going to be normal to your kids. Is that what you want your kids to model?
That was me. That was me. When I first got married, I was a hollerer. And I remember the first time I hollered at you. I had to go to work.
Didn't even know he could raise his voice.
Yeah, brother.
I never knew Jerome could yell until we got married.
Tony the Tiger came out, baby.
I didn't know it. No, I felt like he deceived me.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. It's not funny. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I felt like he deceived me. He showed me somebody else, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And you see how I just escalated? I didn't like that. I felt deceived.
Sorry, baby.
I felt like I didn't know that was in there.
Yeah.
We worked it out.
Can I finish my story?
It's 37 years.
I know. I didn't mean to take you there,
took me back
baby.
there for a minute.
Lord have mercy. Sister Staley, we need some counsel.
Because I speak up. I'm not going to just.
Sister guys are rolling well.
But the thing is, though, I put pressure on myself that was self-induced. And I felt like if I wasn't in control of what was going on in my house, then it wasn't going to be right. And I felt like if I did it, that's why we had problems with cleaning in the same room. I felt like if I did it, it was done right because I had a standard and my standard was better than hers. And so for me, I had to be the one to do things the right way because she wasn't cleaning right. And so I let her know it wasn't. And so I hollered at her. I remember I was working 11 to 7. I'll never forget it. We were living in Salem. I hollered at Lisa, got into an argument. Well, she didn't argue. I was the one. And I remember.
Argue now. I'll hold up the back no more.
Yeah, Jesus, help me, Lord. But the thing is, though, I hollered at her, and I had to go to work that night, 11 to 7. I was working at the Acme in Salem, and she cried. And I've never made her cry. But that night, when I hollered at her, she cried and did something to me because I never wanted to make her cry. I always wanted to make her laugh, and I've always made her laugh. But when she cried that night, I knew I had an issue I needed to get some help with. And I went to a buddy of mine who was one of the coolest dudes. I mean, I've seen this dude tear people up, but he never raised his voice. He talked to them just like this, and he put them in their spot. I said, how you do that? Because I never had an example. For me, you let them know and be straight, and you're going to hear me. And if you don't hear me, with volume, I'm going to holler at you because I want to get your attention.
But I never saw that side of Jerome. I never saw
but that's
that.
all I saw that's all I saw for 23 years. Being raised in a home 23 years. I got married when I was 23. And for me, that was normal. I saw my mother and father fight. Fight. I'm talking physical fight. But it always started with an argument. And my mother was not a woman that you would push around. You laughing because she was not like that. I got 5 sisters that fight guys. When I got into trouble, I didn't go get my brothers. I went and got my sisters. So they knew how to fight. That's why I was raised. Okay, we'll move on past that.
Anyway,
but I went and got help. I went and got help because I saw what it did to my wife, and I did not want to do that to her. She didn't deserve that, and I had to take ownership for that. And I got the help I needed. And if you ever see me raise my voice, it will be very rare. I don't raise my voice. I don't holler at her anymore. I got the help I needed. And if you have that issue, you can break a woman's spirit. And when you break a woman's spirit by anger and hollering at her, trust me, the sex and intimacy is not going to be there. Because she's not going to want to hug a bear. So if you're hollering, cussing, saying things to them, and I wasn't a cusser. I didn't cuss at her. I would holler and raise my voice. But I got the help I needed. And now 37 years later, you asked her, when's the last time I hollered at her? She can tell you. It's been a long time because I don't do it anymore. Am I right? I don't do it anymore. I got the help I needed. We got the help we needed as a family. And we wanted to have this session tonight because I understand the challenges of relationships. We've been married for 37 years. We met each other when we were 12. But we've been able to, with the Lord's help, make the changes and the adjustments in our relationship. And that's what relationships are about. It's all about making the adjustments and the changes that you make. If you make the little tweaks when you have to make them, then you won't have to make big tweaks later on. That's good. All right? So I hope tonight has helped you. We want to be, listen, Lisa and I are very transparent when we talk about our relationship because what you see now is 37 years, but we walked through some of the challenges that you're going through now. We walked through some of those same challenges, but one of the things we held on to God. We kept him as the center of our relationship, and he's helped us to navigate some of the things that we've went through. We don't want you to think we have a perfect relationship. We keep ourselves on the altar, and that keeps us in a place to be able to see one another through the lens of God's word and treat each other the way God would want us to be treated.
And a long time ago, and many of you have heard us say this before, we said divorce is not an option for us. But we had to take it a step further because just because divorce is not an option, you don't want to stay together and be miserable, right? You want to be happy. So we are intentional about being happy. We do things for fun, do things to make ourselves happy, even when our kids are grown now. But even when our children were younger, and I know a lot of you do this and keep doing it, it's okay to leave the kids with somebody else. You don't have to always have them with you. You know, it's okay to take a vacation without them. They're going to survive. And you say, oh, well, who's going to keep them? You need to have a village. You need to create a village around you who you take their kids sometime, and then when it's time you need a break, you can turn your kids over to somebody. You can have that village, and we made sure we had that. And we have always, every year, we would do a vacation without our kids, time away without our children. So do that, and your marriage will be just blessed and fun.
And know that we're here.
Yeah, we're here for you.
As we close, know that we're here for you. If you need help, all you've got to do is reach out, and we'll be the help that you need us to be, and keep things in privacy. Yes.
So I just want to say one thing before our folks need to start leaving. We have a Valentine's gift for each one of you tonight who came out.
Yeah.
So Serge has the gift, each one of you, it's just a little something, but each one of you, thank you for coming and being a part of our studio audience tonight. Serge has a $50 Wawa gift card for each couple. Okay, just a little something, something.
And if she
And get some gas. Yeah, get some gas. Get a
coffee.
get some coffee. Get a sandwich on the way home tonight. Sister Sheila Staley, thank you so much
welcome.
for being with us. We got
You're
a few emails, people asking for her contact information. So we will email those of you who have asked for her contact information. And my son and daughter-in-law won't mind me saying this. He said it on the call. We were on a call today. She helped them tremendously. Janetti, a couple years ago, they were in a rough spot. And I think one time they were on their way to her office, and one was mad and didn't want to get out of the car. But they ended up going in, and guess what? They're still married. They got the help that they need. There's no shame in asking for help. No shame at all in asking for help. So those of you who want her contact information, we'll email it to you. Thank you so much for being a
You're
part
more than
tonight. We
welcome.
appreciate
I'm
you.
glad to be
And
able to
appreciate,
help.
yes, thank you. We appreciate all of you who are viewing online. Pastor's going to pray, and then we'll be dismissed.
Won't you guys stand with me, please? Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for being a part of our audience. I'm going to ask you to all remove your masks just for a moment. Look at your spouse. All right? You too, baby. And I want you to give them a kiss and say, I love you, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Father, I thank you for these couples. I ask your blessing of peace on them tonight as they go home. Father, may their night be refreshing and restful. And Father, we thank and praise you. Father, may they practice. May they practice. Practice love making and kissing and hugging and doing the things that couples do because they love one another. I praise and thank you for peace in their home. And Father, may this be something that solidifies their faith and their walk in you. And I thank you for great years ahead of them. I thank you that these next 10 months will be like heaven on earth for them. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. Love you guys. Thank you for coming out tonight. Peace of God be on you. Do something fun.